We getting a late start today, guys. I'm sorry. This is my fault for having so many things I want to talk to you guys about and then finding even more at the last second. Just it keeps getting better. It's 12:40 p.m. on the East Coast. It's Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. And that means it's time for Members Only Wednesday. What is Members Only Wednesday? Well, it's an opportunity for members of the night shift team to chit chat with me and with each other. And I guess if you guys think this is interesting enough to hang around, you'll hear me opine about some recent developments in the UFO UAP space. The biggest among them is the mainstreaming of UFO topics. In particular, this Bill Maher interview that just happened and this whole buzz buildup around the Age of Disclosure documentary, which I have some thoughts on and I want to share with you in a little bit. And there was also a really interesting piece in Scientific American that was responding to Beatrice Villarreal's recent paper about technosignatures in orbit. And they weren't very positive. I'll put it that way. It wasn't very positive. But we'll look at it. And I think they do make some good points. And so we'll kick it back to you guys and see what you think. But yeah, they come down kind of hard on that paper. What else is going on, guys? I just saw in the chat somebody pointed out we have broken the 43,000 subscriber barrier. Good golly, that is awesome. I'm looking at the page right now. I hadn't even seen this yet. I was so busy doing prep. 43,017 subscribers. Congratulations. Go team. Yay us. That's all you guys. I mean, it's a little bit me and it's a little bit everybody else and it's a lot you guys, but you know, we all have to work together to make this thing happen. So thanks for subscribing and thanks for sticking around. Welcome to you. If you are a new subscriber, our goal here at this channel is to just have frank, open, honest conversations about things that are really weird, but are apparently very real and taking place in our day-to-day reality adjacent to all the boring stuff, like what's going on at TJ Maxx and Starbucks and the weird politics and geopolitical insanity, all of it. And mixed in there is like UFOs and UAPs and time travel. And it all depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. We will entertain a lot on this channel. Our goal is to create a safe space for you to get weird about all this stuff. And we like to get weird about it too. But from the vantage point, or I guess from the starting point of, gee, wouldn't it be nice if this was real and it all worked out in a way that was really good for us? That would be awesome. But I'm not so sure how that's going to go. And we'll talk about all that in a little bit. But I don't know. I think it's kind of a unique niche in a very small corner of the internet. We seem to be doing quite well with it. So thanks to everybody who lends a hand and joins us, especially my panelists on Friday, by the way. I have to thank these guys, Dan Cleary, our producer, Xander Jones, who produces the Friday live streams, Pavel Psychoactivo, who you all know and love from the smash hit, runaway smash hit YouTube sensation, Psychoactivo, our friend Pavel, who we'll be talking about in just a moment. Eric Schlimmer, the UAP therapist, survivalist, outdoorsman, author of over a dozen books on surviving in the wilderness, and witness to some very weird stuff. It's a great team. We always have some, we really do have, we managed to bridge the gap between deep conversations about weird topics and at the same time acknowledging how weird it all is and how bizarre it all sounds, and trying to like be respectful of how bizarre this all is. It's like we get it too. Like I am you and you are me. We are all in this together. We're all looking around going, is this real? Is this all really happening? Apparently it is. Uh, which is always a surprise to me because I keep thinking this is some kind of like temporary thing, and I guess there's a little bit of denial, like maybe it's not real and it'll all turn out to be. But as time goes on, it just gets more and more real, doesn't it? So we'll talk about that. Shout out to everybody in the chat. But hey, huge shout out to Chris Hovard, head of our mod squad. Thanks for the super chat, Chris. Happy bonfire night, everyone from the UK. What's bonfire night? That's a UK thing, huh? We don't have bonfire night. And thank you, Chris, for the 5 night shift gift memberships. Oh man, you don't have to do that. Chris, guys, is if you are in here for any length of time, you've talked to Chris or you've encountered Chris. He's one of our coolest people. He's the head of our mod squad. He is in the Discord all the time. He helps us out with the shows. He helps us keep the comment section fun and fair and entertaining, and keeps all the riffraff out. And he does a spectacular job along with our other mods on the team. And just thank a mod, because every time I talk to a guest or a potential guest or someone that I'm interested in inviting on the show, I know I say this a lot, but it is true. Every time I speak to someone and they know about Night Shift, and you would be shocked at how many people actually watch this show. I know I'm always shocked when I look at the numbers. I'm like, this is real. But people in the UFO space who enjoy the show, a huge part of that, most of it, is the community. And that is entirely you guys having elevated conversations and getting in the Discord and expanding on those discussions and opening up these lines of inquiry and just entertaining some of the weirder possibilities that are going on in this space and sharing a lot of this information back and forth. And I think that's the strength of the community. And I think that if you look at the rollout of this Age of Disclosure documentary as it's ramping up, we're starting to see this sort of mainstream recognition about not only what has been going on for some time, but just how deeply all of this stuff is embedded in the weird politics of the moment. And it's, if you're in this space for a while and this is not news to you, it might not seem as like such a big deal, but when you're taking it from the perspective of someone who is on the outside looking in and they're getting the on ramp into this topic, that's enormous. That's an enormous moment. And we're all playing a part in that. So just by talking about it, taking it seriously, having these conversations with other people and letting other people hear you have the conversation, all of it. It's, it's the, it's the most, I think 30 years from now, right? Like people often look back at earlier times and maybe previous generations, and you look back with like sort of a fondness or an admiration for something, some aspect of what was going on socially at that time. Like, you know, depends on who your folk heroes are, but like, I don't know. You just have this, we all have our folk heroes, right? And I think 20, 30 years from now, people will look back at this weird moment and will acknowledge how bizarre it all seemed from the inside. But from the other side of it, it's going to look like the most punk rock shit ever. For real. And to be involved in it right now before it really goes mainstream and really becomes the number one subject on everyone's radar, it's kind of awesome. It's like knowing about you're on the inside before everybody else, and you kind of have a heads up on this whole thing. So yeah, that's the coolness factor, and I don't think you can, you know, it's either there or it's not. And so I think the combination of people and the combination of personalities and the way that we kind of bring them all together, or at least try to, that's our goal here. I think that goes a long way towards helping that conversation uh, get where it needs to go. I saw someone in the chat also mention that it's getting chilly where they are, and we do have some really great night shift cold weather gear, which we might be adding some more to soon. If you want to go to teamnightshift.com, you can check it out. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the stuff that Bill Maher had to say on his show when he interviewed Dan Farah last week. This is happened a couple days ago, but it was kind of a huge deal. Bill has been doing a good job sort of reinventing himself over the past year, and he's also launched his podcast Club Random, which is it's really weird, but it's not that bad. I kind of enjoy it. But he had Dan Farah on, the director of Age of Disclosure, and they sat down for about a 10-minute, about a 13-minute interview. And it seemed really weird to me because the impression that I got was that Bill Maher is not entirely on board with this. It seemed like he was sort of resisting the idea the whole time, but doing it anyway. I'll tell you what I mean as we go, but I'm just going to play the first bit of this, and then we'll come back and discuss.
But first up, he is the producer and director of the new documentary, The Age of Disclosure, releasing in select theaters and streaming worldwide on Prime Video November 21st. Take a look.
My gosh. There's a whole fleet of them.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours.
These are otherworldly things that are performing maneuvers that haven't been seen.
You can kind of see it start to accelerate, and as it gets in front of us, it's gone. This thing was doing 32,000 miles an hour.
Please welcome Dan Farah. Dan, how are you, sir? I appreciate you having me here. All right. So I saw your movie. I can't wait to talk to you about this. Not just because it's Halloween. I know it's a spooky subject. But I've been on your page for quite a while. I think, I'm old enough to remember when we talked about UFOs, or what do we call them now?
UAP.
UAP. I don't know why we had to make the change.
Unidentified anomalous phenomena.
I thought it was aerial. No. Unidentified anomalous phenomenon.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. They're flying saucers. and what?
That's fair.
All right, so first thing is, like, he's not really up on the lingo, so he clearly is not as into this as those of us in this community are, which is fine. Most people aren't. I mean, it's like, I'm a UFO nerd, but I understand most people aren't. But he goes on. He makes, a few more mistakes throughout. So you'll notice little things like this as we go.
And, things have changed a lot. I mean, again, I'm old enough to remember when it was just the kooks who thought about this. And I just want to say, I think if you don't think this is happening now, I'm not sure who the kook is. But I don't think it's me. I really don't. It used to be crazy people or people out in the middle of nowhere who got anally probed and all that kind of...
I don't know what this part is like. I don't understand what he's trying to do. If he's just trying to be funny, I mean, he gets a laugh out of this, but it shows that he doesn't take it seriously. Because if he took it seriously, he would understand what he doesn't understand what he's talking about, and the whole history behind this, this story. And he gets a few other details wrong that aren't like, if you have a passive interest in UFOs at all, you've probably read Communion. I think, you should understand what it is. You'll see.
And now it's, I mean, it's not just the military people and the Defense Department people, but everybody. You did a great service with this room because you put it all together and you see all these people, not just Rubio, it's bipartisan. You see Schumer and Adam Schiff and the senators and very, very serious people, the people with the buzz cuts in the military, talking about this and saying the kind of things that just cannot be explained. So, my first question to you is, could you go through the 6 observables? These are the things that you cannot deny that they are seeing.
6 observables. Well, it's 5 observables, but okay.
Yeah. So a number of the intelligence officials I interviewed who actively investigated UAP and non-human intelligent life for the government, they came up with a set of observables, they called them. These are basically flight characteristics that we observe UAP doing. And it's things we can't do. So like instantaneous acceleration.
Instantaneous acceleration.
Yeah, so like stopping on a dime and then taking off.
Right. One of the guys in the movie says they hover around for a few hours and then it's just gone.
Yeah, just absolute instant going from like 0 to thousands of miles an hour. Anti-gravity, displaying characteristics that seem as if they are not impacted by gravity. Transmedium travel, going from one medium to another, going from like space to the air to the ocean seamlessly.
And traveling in the ocean at speeds we could never travel in the ocean that don't seem to be affected by friction of any kind.
Yeah. And then hypersonic velocity. The long and short of it is these things are doing things that we can't do. Our most advanced aircraft can't operate this way. And they're doing it with impunity in our most sensitive airspace. So our training ranges, our military bases where we have our defense capabilities, like Vandenberg Air Force Base up the coast here in California, where we have our heart of our defense capabilities, UAP activity there regularly, our nuclear weapons bases. It's a serious issue.
A very, well, I mean, it could be the most serious issue. I mean, I feel like.
So it's interesting how I can't say why I feel the way that I'm about to describe it to you, but this feels like a sales pitch. This feels like a very salesy kind of pitch of a particular vision of what the story is, which I understand that's the purpose of the documentary. Sorry, I have this light that's like in my eyes and I'm just getting like blasted. I understand that's the point, but it's weird because as Bill tries to walk us through this interview, it feels very clunky. Like he feels very clunky around the subject. It doesn't seem like he really understands it. He just seems to be very like supportive of it, but almost as if it's like they were like, this is a show you're doing. You're going to have him on and you need to sell this thing. And he was like, oh, okay, well, normally I wouldn't, but I don't know. I just have this vibe. That's what I'm picking up here.
They remind me, the aliens, a little bit, the guy in the tough guy movie. He always says, if I wanted you to be dead, you'd be dead by now. I feel like people who have this capability, if they wanted us dead, we would be dead by now.
Well, one of the points raised in our film is, what if that's been the case for a long time, but circumstances have changed? You know, we've evolved technologically very quickly over the last 80 years.
Right.
But our morals have not really evolved. We're still a violent species. We're still threatening war. We're, still invading sovereign nations.
You bring up the point, and I think it's a great one, that I don't think it's a coincidence that we started finding stuff in 1947, right after the dawn of the nuclear age. That's when you have Roswell. They have found crashes. You have people who say...
Yeah, people that say Roswell happened and it was real.
You have people who say, I saw with my own eyes a alien body.
Yeah.
Or a spaceship that crashed.
Yeah. I think the connection between nuclear weapons and UAP is fascinating. It's one of the most interesting things I learned about making this movie. In line with our harnessing of nuclear energy and our technological progress, UAP activity has increased. And so, it's safe to assume they're concerned with our progress technologically.
Yes. I mean, again, I'm just going by what I'm reading, not just and seeing in your movie, but reading for years now, certainly the last 5 to 10 years. It just seems that there is a progression. At the beginning, they seemed to be interested, they were more land-based. The things we found, there was that book, Communion. Somebody wrote about a number of people, hundreds of people who had a very similar experience. It could be a different psychological phenomenon.
So he doesn't even know what Communion's about. That's a different book. He's talking about, Communion is Whitley Strieber's book about his abduction experience and encounters at a cabin that he stayed at, and which was made into a movie starring Chris Walken as Whitley Strieber. And he's conflating that with, it sounds like John Mack's abductions.
But they all seem to be even boarded on a spaceship. They have a vague memory of being probed in the ass.
And there you go again. Like, that's also, like, why do you have to do that? Why, that's just weird. The whole anal probe thing was a deliberate attempt to make this whole topic seem goofy and weird and turn it into sort of a laugh, um, a laugh line thing that you could just, and you'll see this in older media coverage from years past. And the further back you go, the more you'll recognize it, because the stronger it is. But this is an interesting shift that we're seeing now. It for most of my life, I can remember any time UFOs or the possibility of a cover up or of any kind were ever talked about on the media, it was always with like a little nudge and a wink, and there was always a little goofy music in the background, or they would have some kind of like silly little graphic of a cow getting taken up into a little goofy like child's flying saucer or something. And it was always framed as like this, the way Bill said it was perfect, kooky, weird thing. And whenever they would interview anyone, they would find the people who were least suited or maybe best suited to be on TV, but not people that you would necessarily associate with the upper echelon. You're not getting the top brass. You're getting, there's only one John Mack, and like, he did as many interviews as a guy could do, but the rest of the time they were interviewing whoever and making it deliberately look silly. And this went on for a very long time. And it wasn't until about 2017 with the New York Times breaking that article, Leslie Kane's article, about all of this. And then the leaks of the Tic Tac and the Go Fast and the gimbal videos. And then that kicks off this whole Renaissance period that we're still experiencing today. And we get the congressional hearings, and we get the National Defense Authorization Act with the disclosure amendment, that we go through that whole process. That's a very bipartisan bill that gets support from both sides of the aisle at a time when the government can't agree on anything else, and is, even now, some might say the government is completely imploding. But they do seem to have bipartisan agreement on the UFO UAP issue, at least to some extent, which is interesting. So we see this shift take place, and it plays out over a number of years. And now we seem to be in this new media environment where I see it being taken very seriously on like MSNBC. Bill Maher is covering it, but he's not doing a good job. He's really sucking at this interview. For a guy that's as charismatic as he can be when he really wants to turn it on, he's really kind of like clunky here. And he doesn't know any of the history. He seems like a guy who just maybe read maybe he just saw this movie the day before and didn't really have much to say about it. And then he gets out and he tries to stumble through this interview. We'll go on, and I have more to say about this, but let's just go back to this for a second.
Like they were studying us, like, okay, let's find out what these people are about. And then they seem to have ghosted us. They're not probing us anymore. You never hear about that. I feel like we know who we're dealing with.
I think there's been a turning point in that I think government officials have started to acknowledge that this is a real situation.
Yeah.
And it's not a laughing matter. It's serious, and it's an issue that should become a serious national conversation.
Yeah, well, I think it is now. Yeah. And as you say, when our technology changes, it very well may change their attitude toward us. It seems like, they could have been here forever.
Yeah.
You seem to think that their bases are under the ocean, which is the best place you would hide. We don't know much about the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. 80% of the ocean hasn't been explored.
Right. And they...
Like, hold the fucking phone for just a second. Like, hold the phone. I want you to take a second and realize something. This is the timeline that you are in right now. You're in the timeline where a internationally known late night talk show host, love him or hate him, comedian, personality, is seriously saying, is having a serious interview, sit down conversation about undersea bases, UFOs, a non-human intelligence present here on Earth, and they're talking about the fucking undersea bases where these things are operating out of. And no one in the audience is laughing at that. Everyone is watching this going, that's the timeline you're in. I don't know about you guys, but I'm of the age where I remember the only time I remember being a kid and seeing stuff like this in a movie, where it would be like the movie about, it's like Independence Day, and it's like within the movie the characters are like, they're at Wendy's or whatever, and someone looks up at the TV and they see the UFO. It's like we're in that scene now, but you are the character and this is the movie and we're all in it together and we're just like watching this unfold. And I don't know what it is about Bill Maher. I used to be a bigger Bill Maher fan, and then I kind of got just over it. His whole shtick was just so like whiny, and I don't know. I needed to take a break from Bill Maher for a period of time. And I kind of checked out for a while. And then Tim Heidecker actually started doing these really great Bill Maher takedowns. And then I sort of got roped back in. And watching this interview, for some reason, as badly as he's muddling through it, it feels like crossing a weird threshold in like media space. Maybe it's as simple as it's like a promotional deal and it's like, look, we got to sell these streams, we have to make this thing a success, and so we're going to get out there and promote it like any other film. But it's the nature of the conversation and the forum in which it's taking place with a tone of seriousness from a guy who is either talking about really funny shit or very serious political stuff. And that's kind of his two modes. And he's taking this seriously. I think that's a very unique moment. It feels like an inflection point. And I want to take this a little bit further, but we have to get to another question that he's actually starts to ask some decent questions here towards the end. Let's take a look.
Now we have AI. Is it possible that we do get to this level where we're getting threatening to them with our intelligence, and that is when it's going to get, they're going to send Keanu Reeves to say.
Great question. Awesome question. Absolutely fantastic. I love this question. Let's see what he says.
I mean,
Clearly they don't want to do it.
yeah, it does seem like we're moving towards a crossroad. Like we're evolving technologically to the point where we're close to doing what they do. Yet again, our morals have not evolved. So we could be viewed as a potential threat.
Plainly, we're not close to what they're doing. Maybe we will with AI, but all the stuff you're describing, the reason why it's so alarming is that we're not close. We don't even know what the fuck how they pull it off. I mean, how you do this stuff. So maybe we have a few years. I felt this was a very positive, even though some people would read it differently. They seem to have the technology, I learned from your movie, to turn off or on our nuclear weapons. There was an instance, was there not?
Yeah, there's been a few events where UAP activity over nuclear weapon sites has activated the missiles in some cases and then turned them off in some cases. And it's obviously a display of power of some sort. You know, your guess is as good as mine of what the intention is, but it's concerning.
Well, it's concerning also if they are going to be able to turn off our nuclear missiles. I say they can't get here soon enough. You know, that to me looks like they're saving us from ourselves.
Great take on that. I don't disagree. Maybe if we didn't have so many nuclear weapons, it wouldn't be such a huge, terrifying deal. And maybe the correct approach would have been to spend the post-Cold War era disarming and finding ways to cooperate peacefully across the globe. And, you know, that in ways that maybe don't just benefit a few dozen guys at the very, very top. If we were able to, and that is within our control, right? Like we could have denuclearized the entire world if we really wanted to. If the leaders of the world actually wanted to make it happen, there's nothing really stopping them.
Possibly.
Yeah. It could be, you know, there's been different opinions voiced in my film, right? Some people say it's the equivalent of adults taking matchsticks out of the hands of children, right? That's one way to look at it. Another way is they're concerned about our progress nuclearly and they're trying to deter us from moving forward.
So let me
Those are not the only two options. Those are two options. Those are two possibilities. But let's go back and listen to what he said again, because this is important.
This is as good as mine of what the intention is, but it's concerning.
Well, it's concerning also if they are going to be able to turn off our nuclear missiles. I say they can't get here soon enough. You know, that to me looks like they're saving us from ourselves. Possibly.
Yeah. It could be, you know, there's been different opinions voiced in my film, right? Some people say it's the equivalent of adults taking matchsticks out of the hands of children, right? That's one way to look at it. Another way is they're concerned about our progress nuclearly and they're trying to deter us from moving forward.
So,
great points, both of them very good points. But it could also be, and I think this is a logical extension of this line of thinking. It could also be that they don't particularly care about us specifically, but they are concerned about the biosphere because we share it with them. And if we share a common biosphere, then they might not want us to destroy it with nuclear weapons or environmental catastrophe, or any of the other things that we could do, because they somehow rely on the same ecosystem. Or maybe it's the biological diversity of the planet that is of interest to them, and humans are part of that, but we're not the whole, you know, we're not the main point. It's just an interesting, maybe our intelligence and our civilization is an interesting byproduct of the biological diversity of the planet. Who knows? There are other hypotheses out there, and that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that there are other ideas about what could be going on. One of them that I've recently become very fond of, and I've talked about it a number of times here, is this concept that Patrick Jackson has put in his book called The Sphere Network, which is basically saying that all of these silver metallic spheres and orbs, that not all of the orbs, but some of the orbs that people see, but particularly the spheres, are part of an automated defense system that is being that uses line of sight, high energy, tight beam microwave communication. So these orbs or these spheres operate closer to Earth as a network. They require line of sight with each other to communicate so that they can maintain electromagnetic they can maintain a low electromagnetic signature, right? They're not broadcasting up to satellites where they can be spotted. From space, they'd be very difficult to spot. And his whole idea is that the way he was able to suss out that this is some kind of an automated system is by just looking at the observations people have made about these things and figuring out, or I guess inferring from where they're located and how far apart they are and how they operate together, sometimes in formation. He said, this looks a lot like the networks that I'm familiar with from our own computer systems that he works on. And so he was able to find other ways to kind of compare observational data with his knowledge about networks. And he figured out, or he speculated, I guess, that areas where people experience what we might call poltergeist behavior, hauntings, are really just areas where one piece of this network is active. It's a sphere that is operating in that space somewhere. And when it needs to send a transmission, the electromagnetic radiation that comes off of this thing is dangerous for biological materials. So it has to use some kind of a scarecrow tactic or technique to summon the human beings in the area away to some other place. And it will do this by doing things to spook us, like it'll knock over a bottle off of a shelf and it'll break on the floor, or it'll throw a book across the room, or it'll sound like a voice from down the hall saying something spooky. And these are we interpret them, or at least paranormal investigators interpret them, as evidence of some type of a ghost or a non-physical being operating in the area. But his whole concept is like, no, no, no. This is what you're seeing here is a network that is trying to move someone away so it can do the thing it needs to do at this particular moment. And it's a node. And we are the animals that are sort of in the cage. And it's kind of like a distraction. It's a scarecrow. And we don't know what we're looking at. These things go, they have an active camouflage system. They go invisible. They can make temperature changes in the room. They can cause areas of sort of a big black sort of amorphous shape to, like, you know, shoot across, like a shadow thing to go from one side of the room to the other, or from one floor to another, all designed to take advantage of the psychology and the, I guess, hack the limbic system of the human animal in such a way that will spook us and get us to go away and do something else. And he goes a step further, and he basically, using this starting point, he's able to come up with all of these other interesting correlations and then test them. Like, they're able to bring in equipment to haunted houses and then test the electromagnetic fields that are around that space. And then they do some sort of like call and repeat thing where they're able to like create these reactions. They're able to trick the network into doing it again and again. So imagine you go into a haunted house and you think it's a spooky ghost, right? As my son would say. But it turns out it's not a spooky ghost at all. It's part of this fucking gigantic non-human computer network. And it's that is using that structure, that home, as a camouflage so that from space it can't be observed. It goes inside the building and uses the structure to mask its electromagnetic signature. It uses a field-based propulsion to sort of move around the house, and somehow they're able to pass through solid objects and go completely invisible, more or less. Active camouflage and transmedium capability. So they go from one room through a wall to another room. Then they go from the room down through the floor into the basement. And then they'll go up to the attic. And then suddenly you'll hear a spooky voice laughing from the bedroom down the hall. But oh my God. So Pat Jackson's whole idea was, if you know this, if you go in and you understand what you're looking at, it's funny. And it's not spooky at all. You can start to kind of like play with this thing and get it to react in a predictable way. And what I love about it is that it's this whole, it opens the door to this whole way of looking at the technology that we're kind of observing, and you know, everyone's seeing this to some degree, and saying, well, what is the logical next step? How could we, if this is an automated system, it's communicating with someone's running it, someone's maintaining it, where are they located? Patrick Jackson has a hypothesis on this, and it makes it's got a very logical line of thinking behind it. So if there are people or an intelligence operating this complicated network, what is its purpose? And can we affect it? Could you use with the right tech stack, could you go into an area where you suspected one of these things was operating, locate it, get it to do something, you know, get a reaction, make it appear, call it, whatever. And then if you understand, I guess, the basic mechanics of what's going on, is there a way that you could interfere with it and shut it down? Or I don't know, could you short one out, right? The whole idea behind the boogosphere, right? I don't think the boogosphere is a real sphere. I'm not convinced on that story. But the story that we're sold on that is that it hit some power lines. I think that's what Stephen Greer says. High tension, high voltage power lines, and then it sparked and it dropped to the ground and it was shorted out and something stopped working. And then he goes on to say that it got heavier over the days that followed, as if the gravity nullifying technology that was operating inside this thing was slowly powering down, and the object was gaining mass as that was happening. So they would weigh it, and then 2-3 days later, they would check the weight again, and the weight would increase. And it went from being 10 pounds to like 30 pounds over a period of days. This is what Stephen Greer said. Whether or not it's true, I still have yet to be convinced. But I like this whole idea of a automated observation system, observing and recording, trying not to interfere unless absolutely necessary with whatever we are doing on the surface of the planet. And it makes sense to me that if you accept that as a possibility, then the next logical question is, well, who's running it? Right. So Beatrice Villarreal and her paper on orbital technosignatures, she suggested that there were tens of thousands, possibly as many as 100,000 or more, artificial objects of non-human origin that were put into orbit around the Earth before we were launching anything into space. Now, if spheres are a technosignature, and she's saying there are tens of thousands of non-human technosignatures in orbit, at least that's what the data is saying. I think that's what she's saying. Look, we looked at the data, and this is what we came back with. Now you guys go look at the data and see what you come back with. We're going to get to this in a second with the Scientific American piece. But let's just take it at face value for a moment. If there are technosignatures in orbit, and if there are technosignatures operating in and around the ocean, it's clear the orbs or spheres are monitoring military activity. They're monitoring training exercises. They're monitoring nuclear facilities. They're monitoring nuclear assets and deployed at sea. They're monitoring things all the time. That's why all of these sightings are happening, right? Around military vessels and various bases. So it's clear that they're monitoring us and they're responding to different levels of activity with different levels of intensity. That is very much in line with Patrick Jackson's whole concept. So that makes sense to me. Now, if you take Beatrice and her team and their findings and you add that, well, okay, now we have this orbital network and we have this sort of ground level network made up of these spheres. Are those two things related? Are they connected in any way? Are they operating together? Or are they separate pieces of technology? Like, these are the next level obvious questions, right? Eamon Ansbro is this Irish astronomer. He is the gentleman that I interviewed a few months ago. I'm going to have him back on soon, and we're going to talk about his own work since the 1990s into technosignatures in Earth orbit. He's put together some really interesting information on his website about the very particular tech stack that they are using, his team now, to locate some of these things. His work is separate from what Beatrice was doing, and decades before, he was identifying these sort of orbital tracks around which you could base predictions on when and how often you would see certain types of UAP activity. And his whole hypothesis was sort of like, if we can predict when and where they're going to appear, then we have to assume that this is some sort of an automated system that's running on some kind of a plan or a program. And so he started to put that work together. And then just recently, he's been doing, based on that original work, new work into making some type of a contact is a loaded word, but making some type of UAP contact. And he has a very interesting way of doing it. I'm going to have him on to talk about it, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds of this. But there are now, 3 or 4 really interesting takes on this non-human technosignature idea. And I'm seeing that as the topic moving forward, going mainstream, and more people talking about it and thinking about it and feeling interested in sharing their thoughts about it and all of this. That's how I'm reading it as it's rolling out. So these are just things you should know about. If you're not familiar, look into some of this stuff. It's very, very interesting. Let's finish up with this Dan Farah bit, and then we'll take a look at the Scientific American stuff.
Let me just be devil's advocate here, because I'm sure there are people saying, well, what about the other side? The people who have skepticism and their arguments that they level against you. It could be, I don't know, it could be another power like China or Russia that has this technology that we don't have. I don't think that's really.
I think it's even more terrifying, because we know the intentions of our adversaries, and they're not good. So if it turns out China leapfrogged us technologically, by a lot.
They didn't.
Right, they didn't, right? But the person who can't wrap their head around the idea that it's non-human intelligence.
Right.
You would say.
Well,
okay.
I mean, here's another one I had. One of the people who's very prominent, who was early on interested in this subject and looking into it, was Harry Reid. He used to be the Democratic senator from Utah, and he's a Mormon. And the Mormons believe in Planet Kolob. You know this, right?
I don't know that.
You don't know about the Mormons?
I don't.
Oh, let me tell you.
All right.
If you think this...
It looks like Dan Farah his face is saying, why the fuck are you doing this right now? That's the look on his face. Like, really? This is what I mean, there are so many other things we could be talking about right now, and this is why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Scientologists are weird. Yes, they believe God is a 6'2" man, 6'2". They know his exact height. And he lives on the planet Kolob. Where's Kolob? Well, if you hit Orc, you've gone too far. That's all I can tell you. But no. But this theory is that Harry Reid wants to legitimize alien invasion because it makes his religion make more sense.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't have to answer. But
like, that was just wasted airtime. Why? That wasn't even a good joke. I mean, I'm not Mormon and I don't have any skin in the game, but like when it comes to Mormons or whatever, but I just think like it's just irrelevant. Like,
here's my question. Is this something that has been hidden from presidents themselves? Because, it's been 80 years. I mean, somehow a lot of this stuff has been kept under wraps. Wouldn't Trump have blabbed about it?
So one of the shocking interviews in my film is Secretary Rubio going on the record saying that this has been so deeply hidden that even presidents are not told all the facts around this topic. They're sort of given a little bit of information, and they're told the direction this is going to go, but they're kept out of it. And
the obvious question is, how does Marco Rubio know what he knows? But okay.
And that was pretty shocking to hear someone at Rubio's level making that clear.
And there's also the theory I saw in your movie that possibly when these crashes take place, they're doing it on purpose so that we'll be able to absorb their technology, that we have found their spacecraft, possibly, and we would reverse engineer it so we could learn. Can you think of anything we actually may have learned from an alien crash?
Like there's a lot of speculation on what sort of technology that we've benefited from has come out of these situations.
Tang.
Tang.
What a dumb joke. The Tang joke is so dumb. No one under like 50 remembers Tang. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Bill?
But one of the really serious reveals in the film is that intelligence officials in our government and elected officials in our government have uncovered the fact that there is a deeply hidden UAP crash retrieval program, and they've been reverse engineering UAP. And there is, in fact, a program at adversarial nations as well. And so there's this essentially high-stakes secret Cold War race playing out right now to reverse engineer this technology. Some of the interview subjects in my film refer to it as the Manhattan Project on steroids because the stakes are so high, but the public has no idea. So, one of the things I hope comes out of this film is the public becoming aware of this situation, because these circumstances impact us all. But we all, for the most part, think it's not a serious issue. We think it's a joke, laugh at it.
I don't think it's a joke. I just don't, it does not seem to me like they have evil intent, at least not for now. And, given the state of humanity, I don't know if anybody could really do worse.
I mean, would you, if you were an advanced non-human intelligent species, would you want us showing up on your front lawn?
Let's just leave that for next time.
I mean, okay. Not a bad interview, actually. For 13 minutes, they had a serious, more or less serious discussion about, a very serious topic. and you were witnessing in real time a complete media pivot on this issue, which is very interesting because for decades it was treated as a complete joke and totally marginalized. And even if it was taken seriously, the people who were taking it seriously were marginalized. Like, very specific case that comes to mind is John Mack, who was the head of psychiatry at Harvard University, and he was literally they threatened to take his tenure away because he was taking the issue of alien abduction seriously. So that there was a very deliberate, sustained, well-funded campaign for decades to make the whole topic just seem radioactive. And we're seeing a switch in that now, which feels awkward to me because I've seen it on the other side too. So it feels a little bit like weird gaslighting. You know what I mean? There's just this sort of like unease about the way that that I'm seeing it happen, and I'm going, well, you were saying this was complete horseshit forever, and even Bill Maher is having a hard time. You can tell, and I think it's a generational thing because he's showing like through his sort of reaction to this. This Dan Farah the whole time. He's like, I don't know where to put this. I don't have, he just is from a media era where it wasn't done. And the only way he can think to like cover it is to make dumb jokes that sort of embarrass Dan Farah kind of, or make him at least annoyed that they're not, he's burning up airtime on silliness. I don't know. What do you guys think? These are just my thoughts, but it's an interesting switch. And I said earlier I was going to mention Pavel, our friend Pavel from Seguactivo. He just posted on X. Let's see here. Where is it? This is interesting, and you'll find. He posted, retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet just announced he will be part of a Fox News special with Brett Baer that will also feature Jay Stratton and retired Colonel Carl Nell. This piece is to promote Age of Disclosure, the documentary. The question here is, will Brett also air the David Grush interview, suppressed interview from September 9th? This is what Grush was wearing that day, by the way. And then he's got this picture of David Grush, who looks like he's having a great time. And so, sure enough, you go to LinkedIn, and Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, PhD, U.S. Navy, retired. It says right here, in the lead up to the release of the Age of Disclosure, I was interviewed about UAP by Brett Baer yesterday at the Fox News TV studio in D.C. His special, which also includes former UAP Task Force Director Jay Stratton and U.S. Army Representative Colonel Carl Nell, will air on November 20th. Many thanks to this fine team, including Amy Municky, Brian Tillman, and Callie Walton, as well as my special assistant, Laurel Gallaudet. And then he's got some cool pictures of being in the Fox News studio here, along with a poster of the Age of Disclosure. So, again, interesting. Bill Maher traditionally speaks to a left-leaning audience, although some people on the left have probably been, I don't know, I feel like he's sort of been leaning the other direction lately, and sort of changing up his messaging. But he's generally a left-leaning guy. And then Brett Baer, who is arguably one of the most boring hosts on Fox. Like, in terms of just being like a regular guy, kind of anchor, talking head with a serious look, he's that guy. He's not sensational. I like Brett Baer. He seems like a lot of times, like, he's just kind of right down the middle. But for him to interview Tim Gallaudet about Age of Disclosure on Fox, now you're reaching this traditionally conservative viewer base, or more conservative viewer base, certainly not Bill Maher's normal audience. So the messaging is appealing to a bipartisan audience, The media campaign promoting the documentary is appealing to a bipartisan audience. That's interesting. On the run up to a couple of elections, that's interesting. The tone shift is notable from silliness to very serious. One gets the impression that there is an effort underway by a particular group of people to frame the conversation a specific way for outcomes that we can only speculate about. That would be my guess. That, I think, is what you're looking at. There is still an element that is resisting this, the mainstreaming of ufology, that is, and the serious discussion about when did the United States know what about any of this, right? That's where this is going. See, if you follow this whole line of reasoning, at the end you just get to a point where it's like, well, okay, well, when did we know any of this, and how far back does this go? And if we knew, if Beatrice and her team are finding tens of thousands of non-human technosignatures in orbit pre-1950, whatever, 1953, based on their analysis of all of these photographic plates, and that's able to be verified by other groups, right? Other groups can verify that, and she's put the data out there, like all of their stuff is out there. So you could, like, this is not, it's past peer review, and now it's out there, and other people can duplicate it if they or refute it, right? That's the whole idea. But assuming that it is duplicated successfully, and we are able to establish that there are, in fact, tens of thousands of non-human technosignatures in orbit, and if we are, in fact, seeing metallic spheres, the people have, like, the Bet sphere is one of these spheres. We have people in our Discord community who have spheres, right? There's so many of these. You got to think. I mean, for as long as this thing has been active, they've been, dropping out of the sky. Sometimes they get replaced. They land in a field someplace. Somebody finds one. They don't know what it is, but these things are out there, and Patrick is saying there's a technique and a method and a way to do this. Like, you could find them, you could locate them, you could isolate one, and then you could shock the shit out of it, and you could probably get one, and then take it to a lab and start doing some work on it, right? So there's this, like, what I'm seeing from where I sit is like this second level, this sort of next level evolution of the curious UFO nerd turning into more of like a DIY garage band UFO researcher. And I see this sort of evolving segment of the UFO community that's sort of just taking the research into their own hands and going for it. And so the civilian research effort, people like Eamon Ansbro, Beatrice, and others, Avi Loeb, although, Avi's been saying some crazy stuff lately, but Avi's, I think he means well, and I think his heart's in the right place. It seems like we're getting to a point where there's no way they're going to be able to hide it, right? Like, it's going to be so obvious. There's just so much going on that people will be seeing it all the time, right? It seems like there's an increase in activity. People are picking up on this. And also our tools are getting better. And we're sharing information. And we're talking about, we're coming up with better ideas about what it is we're actually looking at. And then working through it kind of collectively to arrive at some ideas about what it could be, and maybe how to interact with it. I think that's amazing. But other things are taking place at the same time that are also very interesting. I want to go back real quick and show you something else about Bill Maher made this great point earlier in this interview, and he says, what about our technology and AI? If our AI is getting developed to a particular point, could it be a threat to these non-human intelligences? And I think he is onto something there. And I'm going to share with you why I think that. And hopefully this makes sense. Okay. I'm really interested in the next I'm fascinated by artificial intelligence, right? Like just the whole world of developing around it, and the whole way that all of the promise that comes with it for a better world, a more level playing field, and a more interesting, livable planet for all of us. Like there are definitely upsides to artificial intelligence. We want more intelligence. It's a good thing, and by itself, I don't think it's a negative. I don't think it's a threat. However, there are all kinds of different ways this thing could go, and one particular interpretation of events that I find very compelling is by a guy named Ray Kurzweil. And if you don't know who Ray Kurzweil is, there's a great documentary about him called The Transcendent Man. And maybe I should show you that first. It's an older documentary. It's from like 2010, 2011. Let me show you this first. And this is just going to set the table, okay? If you know who Ray Kurzweil is, then you can just pause, just tune me out for a second. But if you don't know who he is, he's one of the top AI minds in the field, and for like 30 years, he's been making extraordinarily accurate predictions about the state of technology and technological development at particular periods. And he's been predicting this stuff so accurately. I think his success rate is like 85%. And usually when he's wrong, it's because he's too conservative. It's actually stuff that happens sooner than he predicted. So I'm going to show you this trailer. This is a documentary about him from, okay, it looks like 2009, called The Transcendent Man. So it's a little dated, but this should give you an idea of who we're about to see more from him in just a second, but who he is.
The reason I'm calling today is to express my disappointment that you have invited this highly sophisticated crackpot and given him a national forum to express his pseudo-religious predictions that have no basis in objective reality.
If you go back 500 years, not much happened in a century. Now a lot happens in 6 months. Technology feeds on itself and it gets faster and faster. It's going to continue, and in about 40 years, it's going to be moving so fast, the pace of change is going to be so astonishingly quick that you won't be able to follow it unless you enhance your own intelligence by merging with the intelligent technology we're creating.
This guy is freaky. He says computers will have consciousness in just 25 years.
As we get to the 2030s, you're not going to be able to tell a clear difference between human and machine intelligence.
When Ray Kurzweil makes a prediction, lots of folks listen.
He predicted the collapse of the Soviet Union, described the rise of the internet, and foretold the year a computer would beat a chess champion.
He's an award-winning scientist and engineer, a millionaire several times over because of his inventions.
Ray Kurzweil.
These inventions may end up causing the worst war that humanity's ever had.
Corporations and governments and societies will be created and destroyed on the back of the technology that this book describes.
Inventor Ray Kurzweil thinks that one day humans may be able to live forever.
I want to live as long as I can. I don't want to die. If following Ray's regimen would put that day off, I would be very willing to do that.
I knew there was a reason I was keeping all this stuff, and he kept all this stuff. I do plan to bring back my father.
It's going to scare a lot of people.
The world is changing far too fast. Nothing like this has ever happened to Homo sapiens before.
These ideas are going to ultimately change the world.
We didn't stay on the ground, we didn't stay on the planet, and we didn't stay with the limitations of our biology.
I think Ray is performing the service of a prophet. That's wrong.
He has used the gift that he was given for the betterment of humankind. That's what I know.
There will be the universe waking up.
Okay. Transcendent Man. That's who Ray Kurzweil is. It's easier to show you that than for me to walk you through all the stuff, because it's a very long history of stuff that he's done. But Transcendent Man, the he makes a prediction, and let me switch. I have to switch to a different tab here, so let me just do this real quick. He makes a prediction in another video, and he's one of the founders of this whole idea of transhumanism, sort of reaching to a technological point where we can transcend the biological limitations of the human organism and become an elevated, enhanced version of humans. And he predicts this will be possible due to our advanced artificial intelligence no later than 2050. 2045, 2050, depending on who you talk to. Some people say as early as the late 2030s, but somewhere in there. But by 2050, more or less, like the general consensus seems to be, and it wasn't always this way, but it seems to be this way now, that we are going to hit some kind of runaway intelligence explosion where the computers are getting so much better at designing better computers and writing better software that it's like this runaway feedback loop. And as that takes place, it's going to unlock better genetic engineering. It's going to make enhanced humans possible. It's going to make extended lifespan possible. It's going to make nanotechnology possible. You're going to be able to put an injection in your bloodstream of nanites that will give you superhuman abilities. You'll be able to stay underwater for 3 hours. You'll be able to do, these are basic early level things. And then as it gets better and better and better, he gets into these predictions about a nanotechnology that's circulating in your brain that can actually attach to the neurons in your brain and simulate a fully realistic three-dimensional artificial reality, right? So like that's the version of events that sort of transhumanism describes in a nutshell. So you have this, it's a sort of religion, it's a quasi-religious idea, but it's one that is based in the rapid advancement of real technology that we can all see. So that feels very weird because you're seeing us like build this future. And the trailer you just saw was 15 years old. So as you look at what's happening now, it's very prophetic from that period. This will only accelerate. So when we get to this point, he describes this process of getting more and more advanced. We build these beings that are smarter than us, these super intelligent AIs. Then we merge with them. We'll have no other choice because they will be the dominant intelligence on the planet. The fraction of intelligence that is biological human intelligence will be just a teeny tiny fraction of the total sum of all intelligence that is running around on the planet by 2050. Certainly. So the transhumanism idea is that we somehow merge with the technology. Some people say that'll be through some kind of Neuralink implant that will be installed. Some people suggest, like Ray Kurzweil, that it'll be nanotechnology in your bloodstream that does it, or there'll be maybe various versions of this along the way, and eventually we arrive at some kind of perfected system that is this weird blend of machine and human. Now, why am I telling you all this, and what does it have to do with UFOs? Well, if it's not already obvious, listen to what Ray says about what happens after the technological singularity. Now, I want you to understand two things about this. The first is, this is not a fringe view anymore. It used to be, but now many people in Silicon Valley, certainly the heads of all the top AI companies, anybody in the orbit or that is within the orbit of Ray Kurzweil, Peter Diamandis, the X Prize people, Eric Schmidt, the Google team, all of those guys, like this is one group, okay? They all basically are saying we're on the fast track to this future. Now, when you hit the technological singularity, what that means is it's a point in our technological advancement where it's happening so fast that we can't predict the future accurately beyond that point. We have no basis for comparison with our current understanding of the world to draw any kind of idea of what that could look like. It's just this opaque wall of like computers making better computers until you have like Einstein level AIs every 10 seconds making Nobel Prize winning discoveries. I mean, it's just constant. Now you can see this sort of happening now in the way that just in the last few years, really basic level, beginning, early stage AI has been injected into our world, and we're all finding ways to make use of it. And it's making us more efficient and giving us all of these advantages. Well, roll that clock out 30 years more or 25 years more. And we get to this point where we hit the singularity. So what happens after that point? This is the part where I think the non-human intelligence, this next part here, I think this is what they would be concerned about. Listen to what Ray Kurzweil says and tell me if you think this sounds crazy or reasonable. I actually think it sounds pretty reasonable.
When I started using computers, there are only about a dozen computers in all of New York City. Now we all carry multiple computers in our pockets and our belts, but computation is a lot more pervasive than these gadgets we carry around. Take this rock, for example. Doesn't look like it's doing very much, but it has trillions of atoms and molecules in here. They're all moving around, bouncing against each other at incredibly high speeds. That's computation. That's not very useful today. It's organized kind of randomly. We can't communicate with it very well. But we're going to change that. We're going to reorganize the vast amount of computation in this rock to make it useful. And it won't just be raw computation. We'll infuse it with exquisitely intelligent software, vastly greater than our intelligence today, and with all the knowledge of the human-machine civilization. This rock is going to be a trillion times more powerful than all biological human brains today. This is going to be quite a valuable rock. We call matter and energy reorganized in this way computronium. We're going to reach these limits late in this century, and at that time, we're going to turn many of the rocks and other stuff suitable for computation into computronium. And so, to keep the expansion of our intelligence going, we will then need to spread out to the rest of the universe, turning some portion of it into computronium. How fast can we do this? That depends on whether or not we can transcend or otherwise get around the speed of light as a limit. There are suggestions that there may be subtle ways of doing this. One possibility is to send intelligent nanobots through wormholes, which are basically shortcuts to apparently faraway places through other spatial dimensions beyond the three we're familiar with. Wormholes through space appear to be consistent with our understanding of physics. If it is indeed feasible to either find or build such wormholes, our intelligence will be so great that we'll be capable of engineering these shortcuts to reach other parts of the universe in brief periods of time. In that case, we could infuse the universe with our intelligence rather quickly. It would require only another century, that is by the end of the 22nd century, to saturate the universe with computronium. On the other hand, if we can't get around the speed of light, it'll take a lot longer. But in either case, expanding our intelligence throughout the universe is our ultimate destiny. Cosmologists today argue about whether the universe will die in fire or ice. Fire means a big hot crunch, basically the opposite of the Big Bang. Ice means stars flying apart, eventually dying out. Both of these views of cosmology assume that intelligence has nothing to do with it, that intelligence is just a bit of entertaining froth that dances in and out of the dumb celestial forces that rule the universe. But this perspective ignores the law of accelerating returns. As a result of the exponential expansion of our knowledge and skill, the universe will ultimately be infused with computronium and with the vast intelligence of our human-machine civilization. So the universe will wake up, and we will intelligently decide its fate.
That is the view of the sort of transhuman movement. And the singularity, the post-singularity world represents sort of this, it's almost like a rapture type event, at least the way I kind of see it. When you step back from it, you look at it as sort of a quasi-religious idea. And so there is a not insignificant number of people in Silicon Valley in control of billions or perhaps trillions of dollars in some of the most powerful companies in the world that see this as the inevitable future for humanity because that is their business to produce this intelligence. And you're seeing that starting now, right? Like what the current level of AI, which is already astonishingly good, is the worst it will ever be. Can you imagine 25 years more of recursive self-improvement from here? So Ray's whole idea is that eventually we get to this point where we saturate the universe with our intelligence. And in another interview, he actually expands on his ideas on non-human intelligence. And he says more or less that he thinks we're alone, that it's basically a big dead universe out there. And it's our job, our role to bring intelligence out into the universe, in a sense. And that's interesting. It's an interesting take. He, has a way of defending it that seems to make sense to him, I guess. But he's like, is it unlikely that we would be the only life? Yeah, but a lot of unlikely things happen. So, this would just be one more. Now, I would go a step beyond this and say, well, if you're a non-human intelligence and you're an older civilization and you're either native to this planet and operating subterranean or in some kind of undersea base, or maybe you're from somewhere else and you've established an outpost or outposts here, and those are under the water or underground, and you've been observing and monitoring the development of this civilization and human beings for thousands of years, and you're noticing that they're getting better and better and better technology. And in the last century, they've gotten really, really quick at like turning around their technology. And every decade now, it's pretty amazing from one decade to the next how good it's gotten. If the people at Google foresee this as a possible future outcome, or rather the likely outcome of their own endeavors in this space, why would a non-human intelligence not also make that same conclusion and say the human beings are about to basically hit the period where they are going to go to light speed and they will transcend their basic human sort of dumbness and they will become these superhumans. And maybe they're not an issue today with nuclear weapons. Maybe they're conventional nuclear weapons and hypersonic weapons and stuff. Maybe those types of weapons are not a danger to us yet, but within 25 years or possibly less, definitely within the next century, they will reach a point where they're going to start to be able to do the sorts of things that we can now do. And then they become a very unstable, they're already an unstable element, but an unstable element that is leveraging a tremendous amount of technology. And if you were to ask me what the most likely situation is that we're looking at vis-a-vis non-human intelligence, UFOs, the whole schmear, that would probably be it. It's not the nuclear weapons. The nuclear weapons were when we started exploding nuclear weapons, that was the thing that got their attention, that we were on this rapid technological path, either to self-destruction or to the singularity, right? There's only two ways this can go. We either wipe ourselves out or we keep going. And if you assume any degree of progress, any level of progress on a long enough timeline will take us to some kind of future like what Ray Kurzweil describes. We just get to that point by virtue of having better computers do the work for us. And not to mention, this says nothing about unlimited labor in the form of humanoid robotics. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So that's my hypothesis, right? That's what's going on. We're being monitored, and they're starting to get panicky because we are within that window of 20 to 25 years now before we get to that point. And if these beings are as advanced as we suspect they are, and if anything that we've heard about their ability to either travel outside of the boundaries and limitations of time, or at least see possible parallel timelines or alternate realities, if any of that turns out to be true, then it's also possible that they are looking forward at a potential timeline where we either do destroy ourselves or we achieve the singularity and something else, we become a whole nother problem for them. So what's the point of all this? Well, if I'm boiling it all down for you, I guess what I'm trying to say is my sense is if what I'm hypothesizing here turns out to be close to what's happening, And I know as much as any of you guys, I guess. But maybe I'm right. If I am right, you're going to see something happen within the next few years. They will be forced to do whatever it is they're going to do, whatever the move is going to be. You know, I mean, just think about it, right? Like sufficiently powerful artificial intelligence is going to unlock fusion power. That will be the first thing they try to get to. They're going to try to get to some kind of advanced, unlimited source of power. Why? Because the power, the electricity is the limiting factor for artificial intelligence. We can build all the data centers. We can cover the earth in data centers, but we have to have the electricity to run them. And so electricity, the data center converts that into like useful intelligence, and electricity is the raw input. Well, holy shit. Well, that means that we've got to figure out fusion and quick. So AI will lead us to fusion. It'll unlock that. It'll solve the problems inherent in engineering those gigantic weird reactors that we don't really know how to build and putting that into the grid. You're going to see that happen. At the same time that that's happening, you're going to see robotics go from holy shit amazing to blow your fucking balls off amazing, where they're just like, they already are in people's houses doing chores and stuff, and badly. But give this another couple of years and imagine where we're going to be. Just keep going down the list. We're on a runaway train. So whatever they're going to do, whoever they happen to be, they have a limited amount of time to do it. So, or the monkeys will get out of the cage. That's who we are. We're the monkeys in the cage, but we've found some sharp stuff, and we're starting to figure out that we can maybe work the lock mechanism a little bit. We figured out that we're in a cage. Some of us. We're starting to look around and figure out where the bars are, where the door might be, what time the zookeepers show up. And we're getting smarter, and we're all inside this cage, and we're building these computers now, and we're building these AIs, and we're just making better and better technology. And they're outside observing us with cameras. Imagine that. They're just sort of sitting out there watching humanity develop. We're blowing up, weapons here and there. We're killing each other. We're sort of like violent ape people with nuclear weapons, and we're about to become superhumans, like Khan from Star Trek. Maybe we are the assholes, and they're just really concerned about that. All right, let's go to the chat. I haven't talked to you guys in the chat yet at all, and I'm so sorry. I've just I told you I had a lot to get into today, and I still have a few more things I want to cover. But let's see. Thanks for all the super chats, everybody. You guys are fantastic. Larry Jones says, Kurzweil, who is our top commenter, by the way, right now. Kurzweil is a paid, highly respected futurist consultant, one of the best. Indeed, one of the best. And let's see. Neil Williams says, Ray Kurzweil has a 42% accuracy rate in his predictions assessed by others and an 86% accuracy assessed by himself. That's interesting. I am curious if how is there a side by side? Like what is it? That's a pretty big difference. So what is it that he is over claiming success in? Where is that discrepancy coming from? I would be interested to see that. If you have it, let me know. I'd be curious to read it. Regardless of the total accuracy rating of his prediction, I do think his predictions are reasonable vis-a-vis the whole exponential intelligence explosion and developments in AI. I think his predictions have been borne out by the success of large language models and scaled computation and all of the things that we're seeing now. I mean, it does seem like he was right about that for sure. Unless there's some huge thing I'm missing, and I'm just I'm no expert in this stuff, but I do follow it. Brian Park TR3B says, who would give their body over to AI for an extended lifespan? Interesting question. They went there in the new Alien TV series, Alien Earth. I don't know if you guys have been watching that show, but it's awesome. So good. And the show begins with these children. They've got these children who are terminally ill, and they use this newly developed technique to transfer their consciousness from a terminally ill physical body into an artificial body, a synthetic body. And the whole sort of crux of this plot thing is that we don't really know if they actually are the same people that make it from one body to the other body, or maybe it's just a photocopy of them, sort of placed into a body, and then this body wakes up and thinks it's that person, but it's not actually them. So it's always, I think that's one of the most interesting questions about like what will happen to consciousness, if it's even possible to quantify it, and then could you develop the technology to transfer it from one body into the next, and like what would that even look like? I think instead there's another idea that seems more reasonable to me, that we'll figure out ways to repair the damage that is caused by just being alive, the metabolic damage, sort of like Aubrey de Grey's SENS hypothesis. SENS is strategies for engineered negligible senescence. So basically his whole approach is like, if we can throughout your lifespan, as your body is aging naturally, you'll sort of intervene in that process periodically and reset the body with these therapeutic things, therapies. And so they'll be able to go in and do some kind of medical intervention that will basically repair damage at the cellular level and reset you to a younger physical age. And then Ray Kurzweil takes this idea even further, and he says you'll have nanotechnology in your bloodstream that'll be repairing you as you age in real time, curing all disease, making you superhuman. You'll be able to hold your breath for hours. You'll be able to, just do all kinds of bizarre stuff that is just seemingly impossible by today's standards. So somewhere in there, and then there's the guy at Harvard, David Sinclair, who has this whole idea about resetting the genetic, was it the RNA in your cells? There's some kind of a genetic reset that he's worked on. He wrote about it in a new book that I have not read yet. But there's a reset that his team has been able to show works on in the lab and on mice, where they can take an old mouse and reset its genetics to a younger age. So you can take a mouse that is effectively like a 75-year-old person and turn it back into a 20-year-old athlete. And he said when they would do this in the lab, the mice were so young and vital after they got this rejuvenation therapy that they would break the treadmills. They had like little mouse treadmills they would put them on to just see if they could keep running. And they would actually break these things because they were so energized. So we're going to achieve some kind of radical life extension. I feel like most billionaires are banking on that. I feel like there's a lot of money riding on that. And I feel like that's probably an achievable goal, as wacky and bizarre as it may sound. Ooh, sorry, I bumped my mic there for a second. Let's see. Yoshwain says, load up your brain with nanomachines and move to Mars. Nanobots in my Wheaties. You guys are great. Hey, if you haven't already, do me a favor, guys, and hit that like button. We're 430 people live in the stream right now, and we're only at 214 likes. I feel like we should at least be at 250. That's a reasonable ask, isn't it? Just click that like button if you haven't already and help us get to 250, and you will be my hero. Moody Mongol says, not just the speed of light, we also have to replicate every force our body experiences on Earth for long-term space travel. That includes the magnetic field gravity, and we've surely been working on it. I think any reasonable person who has looked into the UFO UAP space will come very quickly to the conclusion that we have made some astonishing progress in reverse engineering these craft and have achieved some degree of control over gravity, technology, and electromagnetic propulsion that is currently not visible in any of the military or civilian aviation platforms that we see, and certainly not yet. Probably running clandestinely in the background from a military program of some kind, and then definitely, I think on the corporate side, there's been a lot of advancement in this area, and there's all kinds of stuff that's probably just outside of the knowable sphere of things we can infer. Hey, you guys in the chat are on fire today. Just smash that like button. Thanks, Dana. Yvonne, very reasonable. Thank you, Yvonne. Paris Diamonds, massive data centers going up in Indiana and Memphis, all over Texas. Let's talk James Fox soon. Yeah, we're going to talk James Fox on Friday, I think. I think James Fox is going to be a Doomer Friday conversation for sure. I wanted to go there today, but there's just I still have 2 more articles I want to share with you guys in the next 20 minutes, so I want to get to those. Galactic Shabupi, why are some craft reported to be living? Oh, man, that's a can of worms. Why are some craft reported to be living? Well, there are a few things going on. I think the most reasonable explanation is that we're looking at multiple different things all happening kind of overlapping with one another, and we have to be clear about that, right? So some degree of the stuff that you're seeing is just classified military hardware that's doing bizarre stuff, and it's just out there, really advanced. It looks weird. We don't know what it is. Some of it is corporate technology that's being developed and sold to the military. It's been tested, and who knows what you're seeing. So there is some of that, right? Then there are things where we genuinely just don't know what we're looking at. We make a mistake and we aren't sure what it is, but we assume it's a UFO when it's maybe not, or a UAP. But then there are also different things going on that could all be UAPs, right? One idea is that there are some type of a Moneypenny talks about this a lot on X. This is like her whole world. I need to maybe reach out to her and see if she'll come on and explain it to us. But this plasma entity idea, that there are plasma intelligent beings, intelligence organisms that are made up of plasma, organized in some kind of way that is behaving intelligently. And they represent a form of life that we do not currently understand. And they are somehow observing us and performing activities that seem intelligent to us, right? So these plasma things have been seen by astronauts. They've been photographed. They've been videotaped. There are NASA missions. There's a very famous one. I think it's STS-75. It's the Tether mission. You can see it on NASA's website, where they are showing a live video feed, and you see what appear to be. It's almost at first you think you're looking at a slide in a microscope of pond water. That's how active it is. It looks like that. And it's actually things in space that are moving around and zipping and darting back and forth, and of all different sizes. And they actually look like little cellular organisms, like little one-celled organisms. A number of different astronauts have spoken about seeing stuff like that. There's footage of it. There have been papers published about it. So there is something going on there. And I think former CIA director, was it Brennan? I forget if it was Brennan. I think he referred to it as a form of life, a really weird form of life. Some people could interpret it as a form of life. That's kind of what he said. I'm paraphrasing. So that's one thing it could be. Other people, like Chris Bledsoe, see what they describe as orbs. I've seen orbs. I can't tell you for sure that they were alien in nature. I can't prove that, but I've seen them. I have footage of it. Actually, the footage of it will be in the documentary that Patrick from Vetted is making, because he interviewed me for that documentary, and I just gave him the clip the other day. He said it made the cut, so maybe you'll see it there. But I've seen him. Glowing balls of light, orange, white, sometimes red, sometimes blue. when you zoom in on these things from far away, if you zoom in far enough and you can get a good lock on one, it's not easy to do, but they also look like a little organism, some kind of a being of light. I can't explain it, but a lot of people talk about those things. Now, another thing that people discuss widely, and this is kind of more in the nuts and bolts world, is that the actual physical craft that the people, when we talk about biologics, like they've been a craft that have gone down and crashed, then a recovery team goes in, retrieves the craft, and inside the craft are these biologics. A growing number of people over the last, I don't know, few decades have been saying or suggesting that the craft itself, and Bob Lazar is one of these people, when you go inside one and you look around, like we're talking about a saucer, a classic saucer type craft, there's nothing, it's all one piece, like an injection molded all out of one piece of smooth metal, like smooth aluminum, and everything is molded. The little seats come up out of the ground and the walls are all curved and there's nothing separate. And there are no buttons, no switches, no dials, no control panels. And the beings seem to interact with the craft by placing their hands on these like panels. And so it's got some kind of a consciousness interface that takes place where the being becomes one with the craft and the craft becomes an extension of the being, and they merge, at least temporarily, probably to do some of the astonishing things that these craft are capable of doing. I've heard it described as like, I've heard an actual UFO, the disc, when you think of a UFO, a flying saucer, when you imagine a traditional disc, I've heard those described. This was a really interesting conversation. I heard them described once as it's a quantum computer powered by like an onboard fusion reactor. And the pilot entangles with the quantum computer and they become one. And that is what makes it possible for the craft to perform at the level that it performs, is somehow that blending of intelligence. So this idea that the craft is alive may have something to do with that. Great question though. Galactic Shabupi. Great response, Clint. I love your show. Thanks. Larry Jones says they have been known to have gone from window to window on the space shuttle observing the astronauts. Yes. Stay away from the blue plasma. Thanks, Dana. We'll stay away. Important safety tip. Why is nobody talking about the new Enigma data that came out talking about all their findings of mysterious sightings in the ocean up and down the coast? Heiser Sose. Great question. I don't know why no one's talking about it. I just now am finding out about it from you. So I will look into it. If you have a link, you can send it over and I'll take a look. Will Underwood says, night shift, give me a call and I'll show you orbs in all seriousness, peekaboo games and all. Weird. Moody Mongol, if you talk with plasma physicists, they will tell you it seems some forms of exotic plasma display all the hallmarks of life, avoid threats, hunt in packs. Yeah, that's right. The paper that I referred to said they hunt in packs, or appear to. It is an interesting field worth investing in. Larry Jones, telepathic or touch controlled grown computronium AI craft. Well, exactly, right? So what Ray Kurzweil was talking about is basically a reorganization of matter at the atomic level, like this, or sort of like femtoscale engineering, a block of solid matter that is a perfect computational, device. Right. So the actual structure itself, and this has been, I forget where I heard this related to UFOs, but somebody said it was, man, I'm reaching so hard on this one. Way back. It's very foggy now, but I remember someone saying that the material recovered from some of these craft behaves intelligently. Like you could take a chunk of metal out of one of these things. You could carve it out with a plasma torch or some kind of laser, and you could take a big piece of this stuff out if you could get a hold of it. And you could hold it in your hand. And that piece, separate from the rest of the craft, will behave intelligently and also retains function and ability by itself, even when it's not a part of the larger craft, which implies or suggests to me that some kind of nanotechnology is involved. And and we're talking about matter infused with software that they are becoming the same thing in a sense, which is kind of like sorcery. If you really think about it, we're talking about like magic level technology. Kurzweil's saying we're going to be there within a century. We hit the singularity by 2050. And then within 50 years of that, we achieve that level of engineering, this femtoscale engineering, where we basically be able to reorganize matter, like the Genesis device in Star Trek. That sounds like what we're looking at. Does it not? To you guys, when you hear Bob Lazar describe the technology in the craft, the sport model, and you know how it looks when you go inside and hear other people talk about it sometimes, sounds very similar, at least. Dana says the blue plasma. I heard something recently saying that blue plasma is more destructive or dangerous to human life. That brings up an interesting question, and it comes to back to this discussion about like DIY sort of garage band ufology, or expanding the way that we think about this in more practical terms. Like, what can you tell from the spectrum of light being thrown off of an orb or a UAP? You know, the color of light, like what, you know, if there is a way to get them to respond and show up at a predicted place and time, which more and more people are saying there is. Eamon Ansbro is saying that. He's betting on he has a research team devoted to this. They're actually going to go out on an expedition. They are bringing someone with them who is very specifically chosen to for the purpose of making contact with a craft. And they're doing this out in the wilderness in Europe. They have this really secret location they're going to go to, and they're going to be setting up this whole thing. I can't wait to have him back on to talk to you guys about it. It's so cool. But you know, just down to brass tacks. Let's see what we can find out. And I always wonder about the color. What does the color actually tell us about what these craft are doing? Stephen Daedalus, I think Lou suggested that too. He may have. He may have. Magic Russ says, we've heard the stories of people going into these crafts and they are huge inside compared to the outside. That could be like virtual reality, maybe to keep the occupants sane. Yes. And you know where that comes from? That comes from David Grush gave a presentation to a group of people in Manhattan, a private group of very wealthy hedge fund managers, investors, venture capitalist people, like a very elite small group of people. And some stuff leaked from that presentation. And I think we may have this on the Team Night Shift Reddit page. I'm sure they covered it on UFOB. If you dig into UFOB, you can probably find it. Grush said that there was a craft that was recovered that when from the outside, it looked like it was like 40 feet across or something, like 40 feet wide or a reasonable big craft, but reasonable size. But when you went inside, it was the size of a football stadium. And you go back outside and you look at it and you're like, it's just a regular. It's like that scene. If you remember this movie, God bless you. It's like that scene in Loaded Weapon 1. Remember Loaded Weapon 1, where Emilio Estevez is on the beach and then he goes into his little trailer. He lives in a little Winnebago on the beach in California, and he walks inside and then he closes the door and it's this palatial mansion. It just goes on. It's like 25 bedrooms. It's like that. Some kind of control over time and space that we clearly don't understand. If they recovered something like that, that means it's being stored somewhere. It's in a building somewhere. And it's funny because I think about like in Indiana Jones, the warehouse where they have the Grail at the end of Raiders. Not the Grail, they have the Ark. They put the Ark of the Covenant in there. And then they zoom out and you see it's like this huge warehouse of all the government secrets and stuff. I wonder how real something like that would be. A blue rectangle with a police box written on the outside. Brian Park, TR3B. Do we have any Red Dwarf fans? I know there's a lot of Doctor Who people out there, but Red Dwarf is really like my happy place, and I wonder if anybody else out there remembers that show. I used to watch it on PBS in the States. We would get it. It would come on after Saturday Night Live on PBS. There would be Red Dwarf. We'd have the BBC shows, and it was like Red Dwarf and Black Adder and who else? Chef and a few other shows. But I always watch Red Dwarf. Okay, some people know. Magic Russ is it. All right, Fawn Miller, thanks. All right. Yes, I'm a mega Red Dwarf fan. Smoke me a kid. So one of my life goals is just a bucket list thing I want to do is actually make a functioning Holly hologram. I want to make like a Holly talking head AI based off of the Red Dwarf Holly that just responds with inane, silliness to every question. So if any AI people out there know how to do that, I want to clone the voice. I want to do the whole thing. Or Queeg. Maybe we'll make a Queeg. We could at least make a talkie toaster. If someone can make a real talkie toaster, I would be, you'd melt my brain with dynamite. Okay. All right. Good. There's more Red Dwarf people in here. All right. Let's finish up with these last two articles I want to show you before I have to wrap up. So I've got to switch to some tabs here that I didn't have queued up. So let's see. Unsave changes. Well, what happens if I click discard? Okay. And then we go to, here we go. All right. So the thumbnail for today has Beatrice on it and Bill Maher. We talked about Bill. He did a great overtime, which goes on for like another 15 minutes. And Dan Farah was part of that. And there are some extra really great little sound bites in there you should check out. But I just want to move on to this. This is Scientific American. This article went up on October 28th, and it's titled UFOs Are Just One Explanation for Mysterious Patterns in Old Telescope Data. New peer-reviewed research reporting strange lights in the sky, in the pre-space age sky, is sparking curiosity and controversy. And it starts out, for generations, UFO enthusiasts have longed for claims of aliens visiting Earth to be seriously investigated by scientists. Now they are getting their wish. This month, prominent peer-reviewed journals have published 2 papers that link apparent flashes of light seen by a telescope 70 years ago to potential artificial objects in space. But there are many simpler explanations, providing an opportunity for UFO enthusiasts to see how extraordinary claims are tested and often undone by ordinary science. So it kind of starts out as a Debbie Downer. It goes on, I think there are many in the UFO community who really want to know what's going on, says Adam Frank, an astrophysicist at the University of Rochester, who has written frequently about the prospects of alien life. I think it is worthwhile for us to have these open, transparent investigations. This is a great way to show people how science works. And then we get to the meat of it. Beatrice Viorel, an astronomer and theoretical physicist at the Nordic Institute for Theoretical Physics in Sweden, is the driving force behind the papers. The first was published in the Nature journal Scientific Reports on October 20th after a 6-month peer review process. And the second was published in the publications of the Astronomical Society of the Pacific on October 17th after a shorter review process. Both concern data gathered at the Palomar Observatory in California from 1949 to 1958 for a project called the Palomar Sky Survey, which was one of the first detailed astronomical surveys of the sky. About 2,000 photographic plates were used as part of this survey. Each was a glass sheet coated in emulsion, or a layer of chemicals that reacted to incoming light, mostly from stars across the sky. This was the main method of recording astronomical images before the advent of digital cameras. Each photographic plate was the size of a vinyl record cover and was physically lifted into and removed from the telescope that conducted the survey, the 1.2 meter Palomar Schmidt telescope, later renamed the Samuel Oschin telescope. The plates were digitized in the 1990s and 2000s. Vera and her team used the digitized scans to study the night sky as it was before the 1957 launch of the first artificial satellite, Soviet Union's Sputnik 1, to eliminate the possibility of seeing space-based interference from human activity. They used image processing software to look for transients, short-lived celestial events such as stars flaring in brightness or fading from view, that are often associated with extreme astrophysics, under the auspices of Viorel's Vanishing and Appearing Sources During a Century of Observations, or VASCO, project. They identified more than 107,000 transients. So this goes on and basically throws a huge amount of shade at the paper. And they go on to say that besides fluctuating stars, transients can be associated with other things too, such as extreme space weather events impinging on the upper atmosphere, sunlight glinting off reflective objects near Earth, as well as flaws in the telescope or the imaging process, which her team accounted for all of these things in their research. And she has given a number of different interviews where she's discussed this at length, but they don't really go there. Among the events that researchers identified, they noted several examples where multiple transients appeared aligned in a straight line across a single photographic plate, a configuration that Viorel argues is unlikely to occur by any known natural phenomenon. Other experts, such as Princeton University astrophysicist Robert Lupton, say finding several such patterns in thousands of star-spangled plates could easily be mere coincidence. I think the whole point of her paper was that it can't easily be mere coincidence, and that's why it was such a big deal. That it can't be coincidence that this is, they're finding this many across that many plates. But then again, Robert Lupton says otherwise. In the scientific reports paper, Viorel and Stephen Brule, a Vanderbilt University Medical Center anesthesiologist with an interest in UFOs, found that many of the transients occurred on or near dates of nuclear testing, with multiple nuclear test sites known to be near the Palomar Observatory at the time. They wrote that the transients appeared to be 45% more likely on dates within 24 hours of a nuclear test, which is consistent with what Dan Farah says and with what the people in the Age of Disclosure have said, as well as a number of other people who have been testified as to the activity of UFOs and UAPs. That there is some connection to atomic testing, some monitoring that's taking place, and some kind of reaction to these tests. So they go on to interview, let's see, where is it? Sean Kirkpatrick. This is really interesting. So a couple more paragraphs down, it goes on to say there are a host of simpler explanations for Viorel's transients, which have drawn previous scrutiny from skeptical astronomers, that don't require the extraordinary claims of UFOs. Sean Kirkpatrick, who was head of the Pentagon's UFO Investigating All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW, from July 2022 to December 2023, says he thinks the link to nuclear testing and Earth shadow is the key. Taken together, that tells me these transients have both a solar and a nuclear overlap, he says. The first thing that comes to mind is solar flare radiation or ionized particle radiation from nuclear testing. Split-second bursts of light in the upper atmosphere that would manifest as a point source rather than a streak. Another possible explanation is high-altitude balloons, which were used to do nuclear monitoring You're going to have a lot of those things around nuclear testing. And so if people see them, a lot of people are going to report them. Balloons. So that's really interesting because this is the actual paper here, Scientific Reports. I'll paste this in the chat if you guys want to look at it and feed it into your AI of choice for deeper analysis. But there it is, nature.com. There's another article that was published in The Atlantic recently. This is from December 2nd, and I want to show you this before we wrap up for today. And it's called When a Telescope is a National Security Risk. And this is about the Vera Rubin Observatory and how their observations that this telescope is so powerful that they have actually been contacted by an unnamed American intelligence agency and forced to agree that all of their observational data will be sent to a classified military server where a military artificial intelligence will scrub it of classified information and then send it back to be to the team of astronomers at the observatory so that they can then make whatever observations they want to make. So they're essentially censoring the data from the telescope before the people who actually operate the telescope even get to see it, is my understanding. This is a piece by Ross Anderson, and it says, let's see here. I wanted to highlight this before we went live so I could just pull this one bit, but I have to dig for it for a second because I didn't have time to go through and pull it. Their whole argument is that this thing will be powerful enough to see spy satellites. The Vera Rubin is housed in a sleek building on a mountaintop in the Atacama Desert. The chamber that holds its primary mirror juts up from the end of the elongated structure like the head of a sphinx. The observatory represents a freakish augmentation of human vision. Like the James Webb Space Telescope that NASA launched a few years ago, it will be able to see to the far edge of the universe. But the Webb can only observe a tiny region of the sky. The Vera Rubin will be able to lock onto a tile of sky that is much larger and, after 30 seconds, return an image of that tile that extends 13 billion light years into space. Then it will pan over and lock onto an adjacent tile of sky and do the same thing. After just 3 nights of going tile by tile, like a handyman redoing a bathroom wall, it will have captured a deep image of the entire sky. National security types worry about what the Vera Rubin will be able to see. Ivzek, I hope I'm saying this right, told me that each of its full sky images will contain more than 40 billion objects. That's several times more than all previous surveys of this sort combined. When the Vera Rubin sees an object that it hasn't seen before, it will alert astronomers. If a star explodes billions of light years away, an algorithm will spot it and the community will be notified. If a near-Earth asteroid comes hurtling right towards us, scientists will know to zoom into it immediately with other observatories. The problem is, if a spy satellite or some other secret spacecraft moves into view, that too could get flagged and have its location distributed in real time to people all across the world. Well, the Pentagon doesn't like much of anything to be known about its satellites. During the Cold War, the United States was more secretive about what it did in space than what it did in the nuclear realm, says Aaron Bateman, a historian at George Washington University and the author of Weapons in Space. The U.S. acknowledges the general contours of its nuclear arsenal, how many weapons and delivery vehicles it has, but tends to be far more circumspect about its military space capabilities. Bateman told me that the very existence of the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, the agency responsible for developing U.S. spy satellites, this is where David Grush used to work, was classified until 1992. The NRO still operates a fleet of these satellites but exact details about how many and what kind remain secret. The Vera Rubin Observatory will likely make awkward eye contact with some of them. Many of them are telescopes in their own right, but instead of tilting up towards the sky, they point down at Earth. This dual nature of the telescope dates back to its inception. After inventing his, Galileo wrote to the ruler of Venice about its ability to spy enemy ships. He also vowed to keep the device a secret. During the early Cold War, the British government monitored Soviet satellites and missile tests with the Jodrell Bank Observatory in Manchester. So, they go on to explain how this works. And here it is. Let's see. They agreed to set up a system that would remove classified information from the telescope's images, but he and his mysterious interlocutors, these are the people from the intelligence agency that was unnamed that contacted him, did not initially agree about how it should work. Some of their concerns were easy to assuage. The Defense Intelligence Agency sometimes asked to be informed when foreign nationals use America's most powerful radio observatories, in case those people were to point them at something sensitive, presumably. No such protocols would be necessary for the Vera Rubin's Chilean operators because the telescope has a fixed 10-year observation plan. He showed it to his government counterparts and assured them no one would be able to deviate from it. After some back and forth, Ivzek said he and his counterparts came up with a less invasive way to remove secret American assets from the observatory's instant alerts. A government agency, no one told him which one, would chip in $5 million for the construction of a dedicated network for moving sensitive data. Each time the telescope were to take one of its 30-second tile images of the sky, the file would immediately be encrypted without anyone looking at it first, and then sent on to a secure facility in California. Next, an automated system would compare the image with previous images of the same tile. It would cut out small postage stamp pictures of any new objects it finds, be they asteroids, exploding stars, or spy satellites, and it would filter out the postage stamps that might depict secret U.S. assets and, 1 minute later, send all the rest together with their coordinates to an alert service available to astronomers worldwide. 3 days and 8 hours later, the entire tile image would be released to astronomers untouched by black marker or any other technology of redaction. By then, the spy satellites would likely have gone somewhere else. They are elusive after all. Their orbits are irregular and they shift directions often. Not even the world's most accomplished astronomers would be able to infer their present locations from a line of light streaking across a 3-day-old image. So they have a system in place at the Vera C. Rubin Observatory to pre-screen astronomical observations and scrub them of anything that the United States government or its affiliated intelligence apparatus deems sensitive. And that could include both spy satellites or secret spacecraft. I'll let you decide if UFOs are a part of that, but I think you know how I feel about all this. Okay, guys. Hidden in plain sight. So I guess the takeaway here is that as more and more people turn their eyes to the skies and start paying attention to the technosignatures around us, and our tools get better, and we start to learn how to look for these things and what to see, what to do when we see them, and how to communicate all that, we get better at spotting them. It's going to be interesting to see how if they are going to try and cover this up for any length of time, like how are they going to do that? At some point, this whole thing has to break wide open. And I just feel like we're on the verge of that. So it's interesting. The Scientific American piece is interesting because it's a really strong counterpoint to all of the UFO NHI technosignature talk. I thought it was really weird that they pulled Sean Kirkpatrick into it, but I guess that shouldn't surprise me. It seems like that's the other side of this whole media campaign, right? We said earlier there were two it seems like there are two factions here playing for the hearts and minds of the viewing public. And one group is trying to downplay all this. And one group is saying that's not exactly what's going on here. And how this all plays out over the next 12 months is anyone's guess, but I'm very interested to see the age of disclosure and learn more about what they have to say in it. And someone in the chat mentioned that, there was Gary McKinnon famously hacked into a NASA database and says he saw all kinds of images of weird craft that shouldn't be there. He found evidence of UFOs and off-planet technology. There was the flight surgeon Greg Rogers, who, look him up. He recently gave a number of interviews. He was the flight surgeon for Cape Canaveral in the 1990s and was shown while he was at work in his capacity as the flight surgeon for that base. He was talking to another officer who showed him a UFO in a hangar there with the actual, surrounded by people, a staff that were doing a test on it. And it was hooked up. He described it as being hooked up to umbilicals. And it had some kind of like power source that was being, wired into it. And this thing was doing all kinds of weird stuff. It had a U.S. Air Force emblem painted on the side. I lost my thread. Sorry, guys. I just spaced on where I was going with that. But Greg Rogers is another interesting one. So maybe I'll stay for the outro. Thanks, Yvonne, for staying for the outro. Gary McKinnon is intriguing. Would love to know more. He was on Jesse's channel last month at Eglin. Weaponized new episode starts in just 15 minutes. I'm just saying in case you are interested. Stephen Dale is. Thanks for the reminder. That's my cue. I think I'm going to call it there, guys. Hey, real quick, if you stuck with me this long, do me a favor. If you're not already a member of the channel and you want to support what we're doing, we're making an earnest, honest, level-headed attempt to try and have open-ended discussions about the weirdest stuff out there. And it's a full-time job. I think about it every single day. Even when I'm not here doing these, I'm working on it. Even when I'm trying to do other things and be with my kid and be with my families, it's always on my mind. And I would like to take a moment to appeal to all of you. If you want to support this and you like what we're doing here, I want to make it better. I want to expand it. I want to do more with it. The more you support the channel, the more I can do that. How can you support the channel? The easiest, simplest way is subscribe and share our videos. If you want to go an extra step beyond that, you can become a member on the YouTube page. There's a little button that says like join or membership. You can click that and you can kick in a couple of bucks a month. Those bucks go to support the cost of doing all of this. That cost is extensive. It's all of my time. It's all of my effort. It's everything that I do to put content together on a week-by-week basis, plus all of the costs of actually doing this, the subscriptions to all the different tools it takes, which add up and get very expensive. The more members we have, the more freedom that gives me to do other things and expand the channel and expand the show. What I can tell you is this: for those of you who have been fans of this channel for a long time, if you've been with me since the very beginning, I can clue you in on a few things. One is that we have entered a period of astonishing growth. All of the metrics and all of the analytics data on this channel I have looked at extensively, and I've been watching this develop over months. And every single metric, by any metric that you look at, this channel is about to explode. We really are growing in all the right ways, in all the right areas. And whatever it is that we do here seems to be resonating with you guys. The biggest thing that holds me back from being even more creative and doing more stuff is just the constraints of having to constantly crank out a certain amount of content every week to hit these sort of weird artificial thresholds that YouTube's algorithm has so that we can stay viable. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is membership in the channel, being a member, isn't just about, kicking a few dollars in every month. It's about creating a foundation that I can actually stand on reliably, and I can rely on it to be there month after month after month, which gives me the security to go above and beyond and keep growing the channel to the next. Our next goal is 100,000. I want to get us to 100K in 18 months. I think we can do it. So this is my call to action, if there is such a thing. I want to appeal to you guys for any support you could offer. I really do appreciate it. All of it helps. Anything counts. Whether you just watch a video, share it, leave a comment. You don't have to spend any money. If you want to be super, super cool, go to teamnightshift.com, click merch, check out our merch page. I promise you, our merch is some of the best merch you're going to find anywhere. It's awesome. Our t-shirts are painstakingly designed by a amazing person, a fantastic designer and graphic artist named Cole Watkins. He's a friend of the show, a friend of mine, and he's also been doing work for some other really cool creators in this space, which you may have seen on other channels. Cole is phenomenal. The shirts are carefully chosen. Every one of them is high quality, heavy duty cotton. They feel awesome right out of the bag. They're amazing, and they only get better the more you wear them, the more you wash them. They are just, the more you break them in, the better they are. And I'm not just saying that. I truly do believe that. And if you get one and you don't like it, email me and let me know and we'll fix it. So let's see. Is there anything else that I want to throw out there before we go? Yes, I do. I want to end on this note, and I'm sorry, I just spent this time kind of like pitching you guys to become members of my channel, but I'm going to throw you one more thing at the end. And I'm going to talk about this again on Friday because I think it's important. And I just want to share this with you. So Matthew Brown, who posted on X recently, he was on, let's see, I got to switch tabs here, guys. Hang on, bear with me. And then I promise we're going to wind it down. All right. Whistleblower Matthew Brown, who kind of put us wise to the whole Immaculate Constellation program and sort of blew the doors off of a lot of secrecy regarding what's going on behind the scenes in our classified intelligence apparatus, has made this post on his X account. And this was right after Halloween. And he said, last night was a beautiful wrinkle in time. Thank you for coming together and sharing Halloween. Now I need to address something not so fun and my least favorite subject, money. I lost my job in spring because I chose the American people and not the controlled opposition. I will never again work in the career I spent my life training for, intelligence. My wife is disabled and needs surgery in the next 2 to 3 years. Personally, I am not too far behind. Everything I have done for the disclosure movement has been provided free of charge and with no expectation of compensation. Weaponized, invisible frontiers, the grueling behind-the-scenes game of spy versus spy, all free. Never paywalled, never gated, never spammed with ads for fundraising, free and more powerful because of it. The emotional support that I have received from the community has been my one bright light, but it is not enough for survival. I appreciate every kind donation I receive, but these barely cover half of my rent, to speak nothing about health care. What's that? And the cost of living. This is unsustainable, but I have no choice other than to persist. Real talk. I and other whistleblowers are currently challenged by a compressed timeline to achieve our movement's ends. Otherwise, we face imprisonment and execution once our few allies in the military, the IC, and the government are removed. On a societal level, we are far behind where we need to be in order for the massive challenges already emerging into our world. We must accelerate to affirmation and adaptation and brook no compromise with liars and traitors to humanity. I need your help, specifically your financial help. Please consider a paid subscription to Invisible Frontiers. It's only $7, a donation on Ko-Fi, or one of the t-shirts designed by members of our very own community. I have no secret sponsors, book deals, documentary appearances, speaking tours, time-gated content, pending invitations to the Billionaire Book Club, or any of the other niceties enjoyed by those agents of influence employed, wittingly or not, by deep state disclosure and our adversary. So, if you can, please help me and my family. If you cannot, I understand, but at least respect this movement and those who have sacrificed themselves and their loved ones to do the right thing for humanity. This moment is not about money, power, influence. This is about our survival. And then he provides links for the Invisible Frontiers and for his Ko-Fi page, which I will link to in the chat. If you guys want to help support Matt, please do so here. And let's see, where's my chat window? Here we go. I'll leave this here for you guys. Dylan Borland talked about this. These guys are out in the wind, twisting like you want whistleblowers, right? You want people to come forward and share the glimpse behind the curtain at the secrecy and what's going on here. If you really want to fight this thing and you want to like see disclosure happen and you want to win, one way you can do it is by showing the whistleblowers that you will support them when they come forward and you'll back them up. And our community can do that. That's one thing that we can do. So I will be kicking in to support Matthew as well. I hope you will too. Anything that you can spare would be appreciated, I'm sure. You can go to Matt's X post here. I'm also going to post this in the chat, so you guys can go there directly if you want to see the links and read that. It's there. And also, Matt's a cool guy. He is a very kind person and just a good humanitarian, and I think he's one of the good guys. I think we need to do whatever we can to help support him. Dylan Borland said that one of the reasons he came forward and decided to testify before Congress is because he saw the support that the UFO community had for disclosure, and he saw us out there talking about it, and he was watching the podcasts, and he was seeing the conversation unfold in the public sphere, and he was encouraged and motivated to come forward because of that. So let's keep that momentum, and let's show these guys that if you come forward and you risk everything, literally like imprisonment or possibly execution under the Espionage Act, that's terrifying. And the pressure is unbelievable. And times are fucking tough. And it's really hard out there. I went to the grocery store this morning. And for those of you guys who are not from the United States, if you're here in the States right now, they just turned off, if you're not from the States, they just turned off what we call SNAP benefits, which are like food benefits for people who are low income. And I know a number of people who have relied on them in the past. I have people in my family who have relied on them. I've relied on them in the past. I don't think there's any shame in it. We have almost zero, a non-existent social safety net in this country, and they had just switched it off. And I was in the grocery store this morning. I had to stop in and pick up a few things, and you could tell there was a weirdness in the air. There was just weirdness. People were looking at their groceries, and I'm sure a lot of people in this audience, you get to the grocery checkout line and you start to do the math, and you're like, looking at the number going up, and you're like, how am I at $150? I only have like 8 things. The cost of everything has gone through the roof. The economy is in the toilet. The political situation is completely fucksville, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be any help anytime soon. And I would like to use this opportunity to encourage you to do at least the following 2 things. One, look to your left, look to your right, look around your community, and see if there's anything you can do to help someone else. If it's a school, if it's something that your kids are involved in, if there's any way that you can help. Like, there are kids right now who are going hungry, who have no snacks to eat at school because they have no SNAP benefits to buy food. Their parents are just completely left out to dry. People are going into the store and finding out there's no money in those accounts anymore. And meanwhile, the White House is boasting about a $300 million ballroom that they're building with money given to them by companies that just got almost $280 billion in government contracts. It's fucked up and it's wrong. So look around your community and figure out what you can do to help if you can. If there's something you can do, please do it. And also, I would encourage you to do this. Realize that you are in a war right now. You're in a class war. Class war is the only war. It's the only thing you need to have on your mind, and it's the only thing you should be thinking about going forward into the next election and every election after that. It's the upper class. It's the 1%. It's the billionaire class, and they are crushing us. The rest of us are getting ruined. It is awful, and you can feel it. They're weaponizing fear. They're weaponizing hunger. They're turning us against each other. They're getting us to fight over the tiniest scraps of a social safety net that exist in this country and blame each other. And what I would encourage you to do is turn that rage upwards and focus it at the billionaire class, because that is the group that is fucking all of us right now. It's all of those guys. There aren't many of them. They have names. They have, they're on boards of directors. They own companies. Like, we know who they are. It's a short list. It's not a huge list. And realize when you go into any election, local, regional, national election, if the candidate that you are looking at is not focused on how they are going to create tangible, real, actionable benefits for regular, working, blue-collar, everyday people, then that candidate needs to fuck right off. And if your candidates aren't talking about taxing the fuck out of all these billionaire assholes, then they have no business being in politics, as far as I'm concerned. And we need to put the heat on these guys. We've got to turn this thing around. It is really dark out there, and it's not going to get any better until we put the heat back on them. They have had us fighting against each other for years now over this red versus blue nonsense. It's nonsense. And it's all designed to keep us disorganized. We need to unify and unite around some basic human fundamental truths. Kids get hungry. That's fucked up. We should feed the kids. We need to make sure people have health care. Everybody gets sick. Everybody sooner or later needs to go to the hospital. That shouldn't throw you into bankruptcy. You shouldn't be homeless because you got sick. Like, fuck that. We have the money. We have the money. And anybody who tells you otherwise is a liar or a fool. So don't buy it. And reach deep down and get some of that righteous anger and get a hold of it. And it feels good. And point it upwards. And just remember that. Like, you are in a class war, and right now we're getting our asses kicked. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm not trying to convince you to become a socialist or anything, but just understand that the people at the top, the 1% that control and own all of the world's valuable resources, they own and control all of the best real estate, all of the wealth, most of it anyway, they are organized. They do have a worldview, and it does not involve you having any kind of autonomy or any kind of happiness. They're not doing this for you. They don't give a fuck about you or me. And you will never, ever, nor will I or anyone watching this show ever be one of them. Okay? You got to understand who you're fighting against. This is an oligarchy. They don't want you to have autonomy. They don't want you to be financially independent. They don't want you to have health care, so that if you have health care, then what happens if you have some free time and then you start sitting around thinking about how badly you're getting fucked by the federal government because a couple of billionaires want to run away with all of the money? They don't want that. They want you hungry. They want you scared. They want you freaked out, and they want you desperate, so that you don't think about what they're doing, and you'll take any excuse they give you about why this or why that, why we can't have X, Y, or Z. And meanwhile, billions or trillions of dollars are being funneled in to all kinds of military adventures and goofy nonsense that has no tangible benefit for the rest of us. And Matt Brown's tweet should enrage all of us, because it's just calling out something that is very real and very true and very now. Everyone here is being impacted by this one way or another. Every one of you knows somebody who has had to go to the hospital at some point, or who's fallen on hard times, who's lost a job, who's maybe, the bills are stacking up, things, unexpected things. And it doesn't make you a bad person, and it doesn't make you a less productive person. And they have this strategy, this technique of gaslighting working people into guilt tripping ourselves over whether or not we deserve to have health care or whether or not we deserve to get benefits if you lose your job. And it's so sick and fucked up and dark and twisted and evil. And I hate these motherfuckers. And we've got to declare war on them because they have declared war on you and me. And they are winning. It's fucked up. And this is my soapbox. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But seriously, eat the fucking rich. I'm so over it. There is I don't want to get into the whole like Democratic mayor, the New York mayor race, but the Mamdani fucking fallout has been hilarious to watch. These billionaires, they're losing their fucking minds over this guy. He's a democratic socialist. He's like Bernie Sanders. All Bernie Sanders ever wanted to give anybody was fucking healthcare. We could have had a Bernie Sanders presidency. Think about how nice things would be. We could all be sitting back with free healthcare right now. But no! While the secret police are rounding people up in unmarked vans and disappearing them to police, to internment facilities in other countries, in developing countries, or sending them off to be disappeared in Ecuador or wherever the fuck. This is the dark John Carpenter shit that's going on right now, and they have unlimited money for that. ICE just got triple the budget. The ICE budget is larger than the United States Marine Corps. The United States Marine Corps is the finest fighting force you will find anywhere on the planet today. ICE has a larger budget than them. They have their own Air Force. And meanwhile, in your community, there are kids going to school who will not eat today, who will not have food today. There are people who will not get their insulin. There are people who will not get their health care. They won't get, seizure medication. Today, this is probably, I have a family member who requires government assistance for his medicine, and he needs seizure medication. If he doesn't get it, he has seizures, uncontrolled, random seizures, and he could be anywhere at any time and just like fall victim to this. And they are massive. It's horrifying to watch. And these people are basically all being held hostage by this ridiculous political system that appears to be completely incapable of solving problems for any of us. And that goes for the fucking Republicans too. So forget left and right, forget red versus blue, look up and focus on the class war. Be there with me, get in that space and think about it in those terms. And you will see how quickly we forget all of the left-right paradigm bullshit and we can coalesce around something that will actually get some shit done. And I just want to say, that, and I want to thank Matt for being so brave to put out a tweet where he laid bare his situation for people to see, because that's the other thing. A lot of us feel so weird about talking about it that we don't. And what you get is this weirdness. You go into the grocery store and everyone's kind of looking at the prices like, dude, I bought coffee today. Coffee, $16 for one bag of coffee. I'm not talking about like fancy. This is generic store coffee. This is decaf, regular, boring old generic brand right off the shelf. $15.99. What the fuck is going on? So anyway, guys, oh God, that just really, I'm sorry, I'm just like blowing my top today on this, but get angry and go get them. S. Fleischer, this Clint rant is unprecedented, epic, amazing, incredible. Well, thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Not unprecedented by any means, but definitely one for the books. I'm Team Purple. I really wish, look, if just 2 more minutes and then I promise we're going to wrap it up. I'm basically a hippie. I like to hang out and drink coffee and talk about weird stuff. And I just want to, be friends with people and do cool stuff. That's all I want to do. I think that's all most people want to do. I don't think that we really are as mean-spirited as the media would make us all out to be. But I think there is a dedicated machine that is designed specifically and optimized by I'm talking about social media companies. I'm not just making a a statement for the sake of just sounding dramatic. I'm saying that the social media companies specifically monetize rage for the purpose of keeping us divided, and they keep us in this sort of high anxiety state all the time. And I think my wish is that we can snap out of it. Weirdly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I am not a fan of, or was not a fan of, was on Bill Maher with Dan Farah, and she gets it. She's starting to, at least. I was not a fan of this woman at all, but she's talking sense. She's saying, like, what's up with the healthcare situation? Why can't the Republicans fix Obamacare so that everybody can have healthcare? I know people who are paying $2,000 a month for healthcare. $2,000 a month is like renting an apartment in Park Slope. You can rent an apartment, like $2,000 a month every month for health coverage, so that if you get sick, you don't have to spend $150 to go to the walk-in clinic. Like, what the hell is this? This is no kind of system. So going forward, my wish for all of us would be that as we get into the next election cycle and we start looking forward, don't get caught up in the partisan trap, and don't just hate on other people because they don't have the right letter next to their name, but ask serious questions about what are you going to do for regular people? Because this is the window of time. This is the last window of time we're going to have before massive AI-induced unemployment takes hold. You're already going to start to see in just the next few months, you're going to see, they're saying jobs numbers are basically flat. There's no increase in jobs. The biggest companies like Amazon and Walmart are planning on reducing their headcount by hundreds of thousands of people and heavily automating. So the writing is on the wall, people. Eventually there will be no working class. There will be no middle class. And once that's gone, there will be no getting it back. So we have a window of time, and it's closing really quickly. And this is the time to realize that this is a class war. We are losing. Their ultimate goal is to keep us divided long enough to automate the entire economy and create a vertically integrated system where all that money that used to go to you and me and get paid out in the form of benefits and retirement accounts and 401ks and all of these other things, all of that's going to go away, and they will automate it, and they'll keep all of that money. And then they're going to try to make us so desperate that we beg them for crumbs and we thank them for a universal basic income when it comes out. You got to see the writing on the wall here. This is what's happening. There's no question in my mind. There's no question about it. They're openly discussing this. So props to Matt Brown for kind of shining a light on some of this stuff. And then thanks for sticking around for my TED Talk. Well, I extrapolated the rest. Philippe the Haitian, all factual statements. Well, thanks. Yoash Schwain says, you'll own nothing and be happy. That's what they want. AI will cripple us. Elysium. Okay, guys, that's it for me. I'm going to wrap it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next. I'll see you on the next one, Friday. And we've got some really interesting stuff coming up in the coming weeks. I'm going to have Eamon Ansbro back on Friday. We're going to have Georg Bosch from State of the World Forum is going to be here. He's going to be telling us about State of the World. So come hang out with us and we'll talk about that. We're also going to get into the James Fox interview, which is really cool. So that'll be Friday afternoon. Come hang out with us, and I will see you then. Thanks, guys.